And next up will be a panel discussion on Web3 strategies amidst the Metaverse, AI, and blockchain revolution. And let's gain more insights from our fellow panelists who will be joining us on this frontier technology, and I'll be moderating this time. So I'd like to first introduce Mr. Lim Huijie, CEO and founder of Vision Tech, a leading technology company providing innovation as a service solutions focused on driving adoption of AI, blockchain, and cybersecurity to government, enterprises, and the masses. Huijie, please. And next we have Agnes Nyo, Council Chief of Original Startups Collective, which is a growing Web3 borderless startup community founded with the goal of aggregating myriad talent in the digital space, including startup owners, investors, and ecosystem developers under a vibrant Web3 platform community. And he's also actively involved in the sustainability space as president of Sustainable Innovation and Investment Global Network. Right? Welcome on stage. And next we have Professor Wen Yonggang, Associate Dean, Research College of Engineering, NTU Singapore. Dr. Wen Yonggang is a full professor and Alibaba NTU President's Chair in School of Computer Science and Engineering at NTU. He received his PhD in Electrical Engineering and Computer Science from MIT. And Prof. Wen was named Top Asia Pacific Technology Leader for Cloud and Data Center by W Media in 2021 and Singapore Computer Society Tech Leader Digital Achiever in 2022. And next we have Liu Xinghua, venture partner from Gangrong Capital, a venture capital firm that focuses on early and growth stage investments in telco, media, technology, including AI and frontier technologies. And Mr. Liu is an experienced executive with a demonstrated history of working in VC and fast-growing internet firms. Let's welcome the panelists on stage. And I have, all right, thank you very much. And I have myself as the moderator today. My name is Renee, once again, from Hashtags. We uplift innovation and technology firms and companies in brand transformation and omni-channel marketing. We've also developed basically an ecosystem of entrepreneurs, corporate leaders, government and investors across Asia through our platform #Innovation Asia. And panelists, thank you for joining us today. Now, as we know, Web3 or the Spatial Web era, just like blockchain technology, strives to create a more democratic version of the internet. And this is the next stage of web evolution, making the internet more intelligent and near human-like through the power of AI and enabling technologies. Now I have my first question for you. Now, how pivotal is Web3 in shaping the future of digital economies of the world? Who would like to start first? All right, Anmus, you're smiling. You go first.
Okay, hello. It works? All right. A very good morning. Thank you very much, Renee, for having me here, and thanks, Alibaba, for supporting our community. It's very interesting. Personally, I am very, very excited about this entire new Web 3.0 movement. Just a little bit of secret, I'm pretty old, actually. I started my first web hosting company in 1995 during the Web 1.0 time. Right, that was a time when we talk about, decentralizing, distributing. Everybody who has the ability to set up a web server can be plugged into the internet and distributing the content. And today, in Web 2.0, we are seeing a little bit more consolidation, where large companies tend to kind of like dominate the internet. Web 3.0 is actually returning to the true essence of the internet, but powered by better technology today. So the whole gist of Web 3.0 is about decentralizing, right, democratizing, and returning the power back to the users and the people, so that content can be created and consumed at a community level. Decision can be made at a collective level. So in terms of the economies, I would say that it's still in a very, very early stage of development in Web 3.0, just like how we started in the internet, trying to find out what are the use cases and what are the true problems to be solved. But really today, there are a lot of gaps that Web 2.0 need to be fit. And I think in terms of the Web 3.0, there will be a lot of new opportunities coming up, especially in the era of the Metaverse, right? Transactions is now done in the borderless kind of like ecosystem, right? And the way that you engage your customers will have to be rethink and rethought through in the ways that you create a more immersive and engaging experience for the users. So we are no longer limited by the physical world, physical transactions. We are looking at end-to-end crypto transaction, a new tokenomics economy where new transactions and new marketplaces will be opened up. Yeah, that's my view. Thanks.
Thank you. How about Professor Wen?
Yeah, thanks, Rainer, for arranging this session, and thanks Alibaba for inviting me. Actually, Metaverse over the last couple of months has been suddenly become one of the hottest topic people have been discussing. And actually, last year I've been invited by government to actually have some closed door discussion about what Metaverse to Singapore. So are the opportunities or are the challenges, or is it a good time for Singapore moving to Metaverse? Actually, the consensus we have reached out is in the old economy, we are limited by the real estate or the land that we have. Singapore, probably you guys know, data center, probably really dear to us, Alibaba's business. Data center is one of the engine which can turbocharge our economy, but we are limited or bounded by the real estate and the power capacity we have, and there's no way for us to further grow our economy in that aspect. But with this Metaverse, actually, the transactions and business not limited by the physical space you own or you have in the world. No, Singapore had only 700 square kilometers of space. We have nowhere to grow our business further. So, but with Metaverse, all I need is have access to computation facility, which could be across the bay from Badan or across the board from Johor. So we have access to those, and that's actually a good opportunity for Singapore to move in forward to actually cultivate an ecosystem here and grow our business in that aspect. And in order to do so, we will have to understand what it takes to build economy out of Metaverse, and this new technology is the talents. So as a university, we are commissioned by the government to actually looking after all of this, and we would like to work with the industry, work with the government, and work with the ecosystem to build our talent pool to further develop our economy in this aspect. So in that sense, actually, from Singapore point of view, it's a good opportunity for us to grow our economy in a borderless manner, as Thomas mentioned. Is actually that's a good opportunity for us, and we certainly would invest more on this aspect and to grow our economy in that aspect. I hope that gives some perspective from an educator.
How many years to come, you think?
That's a good question. I often that is the question of predict the future, because we know it's almost impossible to predict the future. If I know how to predict the future, I will not be sitting here to think. So actually, talk about this technology do evolve. Typically this short time is like 3 to 5 years maximum. So we need to do something within 3 to 5 years. Otherwise, the wind will probably blow the other way. Like the AI has been blowing multiple times over the last 50 years or over the last 70 years. At least like 3 different times people thought AI is going to completely change the world. But we have to capture that opportunity, and clearly we're going to meet some obstacles and challenges. But as we overcome these obstacles and challenge, our society, our economy will move into the next stage, and which people thought this is recastination of some old technology into a new context. That's true, but with technology development, we're actually moving our level to another layer. So actually, that's a good thing, I believe.
Thank you. How about Hui Jie?
Yeah, so I guess when we very much look at Web 1.0 to 2.0, 3.0, we see very much a movement from an I to a we to a all. And what I mean by that is that when we first started with Web 1.0, it's very much the platform owners creating content. And we move towards a 2.0, where it becomes a little bit more inclusive when we talk about community and how the community can start becoming content producers. And if we move into a Web 3.0, and what I mean by an all mindset or all model is now with data interoperability as well as technology advancements and means, now everyone can actually contribute and become a creator as well as a consumer of content itself. And I think that is a very huge mental model shift. And that's going to be something that will create many, many multiple different new models very much in the future. And the question asked really today is like, if today data is actually created, would you say that when you create the data is really yours, or you really controlling that data itself? Or is it actually belonging to the platform that you've actually uploaded that specific data to, whether it's Instagram or Facebook or YouTube or the likes? So in my perspective, when we shift from an I to a we to an all model, that's going to be something that's really exciting, but yet that brings forth a lot of challenges that on the opposite hand brings forth a lot of opportunities, which I'm sure we'll cover quite a bit of later as well.
How about Xinhua as a VC point of view? Yeah.
Well, yes, I think Web3 from a VC point of view is probably, I think, the biggest opportunities for the next 10 years. Because Web3 is not just like one technology. It's a, is a converging technologies, I think also promise to make a better and a fairer internet, and really promise to like the consumers to take back control, and also share the whole value creation process. So we think with the crypto technologies, DeFi, and more maturing layer 2 scaling solutions, and we see there's a lot of new possibilities to make it better and more efficient financial institutions, financial systems, and to probably, I think, enable some of the common consumers more opportunities to gain wealth, to control their data. So I think there's a lot of evolution or revolution going on at every level, from the layer 1, from the layer 2 scaling solutions on the protocol level, because Web3 promise like a composable internet. So you don't have to build very hefty organizations, and a lot of us like a small and agile and energetic like a startup, you can leverage the composability of Web3 protocols to build your own tech stacks, your own decentralized apps, and benefit from each other. So we see more collaboration and more entrepreneurial startup emerge out of Web3. So that's, we see a lot of more opportunities. So that is not controlled by few big platforms. It's more accessible. More people can capture the value creation process. So I think while right now we see the globalization is at risk, right, with geopolitical conflicts, but maybe the Web3 can reunite us through new layers of globalization. So we do see is a paradigm shift, and there will create a lot of opportunities for startups and as well as for venture capitalists.
Right. As you speak about decentralization, what are some of the benefits of decentralization, and how can we empower users to maintain an equitable web for the future? Would like to go first, Prof. Wen? Yeah.
Okay. So talk about decentralization. Is flip side is centralization. So actually, it's also always my view that there's no extreme cases like centralization or decentralized will do the job. It's always been somewhere in between. Certain aspect of centralization and certain aspect of decentralization will work together. And specifically back to the decentralized from the end user point of view. Now, there's a lot of hype about this decentralization. I would clarify. There's a perceived that decentralization is different from decentralization. And we thought this blockchain is decentralized solution. Until someone take away your internet access, what happened? You have no access at all. So it's perceived that decentralization. So actually, we have to really understand the difference between purely decentralization technology and the perceived decentralization. You think you is a decentralized, but who will provide that service to you? Actually, he has the full control. So actually, a lot of issues, a lot of challenge, or a lot of failures in the system. When we do post-mortem analysis, we realize you thought about the cryptocurrency exchange, you thought it's decentralized. Actually, someone owns it, someone controls it, someone can see your bid before your trade partners see that bid, so he can play the intermediate tactics to actually intercept your bid, create opportunity for itself. So actually, that's quite something concerns me about, and also that's why especially Singapore government or the rest of the government in the world, they are really concerned about this. Expose this to the common user like you and me, or common investors, especially in defined sector. Expose that to common people like you and me. We may not have the deep tech to really understand what's going on in the system. And you think it's decentralized, actually, is your perceived decentralized. That's my point. I want to get across. Have to really care about when we talk about this decentralized. Do not be brainwashed by these different people. Like, it's decentralized, actually. It's your perceived decentralized. And that's why I always believe there's a mixture of centralized and decentralized work together. And that's the way moving forward. And that's my
so a lot on marketing
view.
hype out there, right? Okay, Anwas.
Yeah, obviously, yes, there's a lot of hype right now, but there's also a lot of fear of losing control. It's not new, right? This kind of fear of centralizing or decentralizing has been going round and round since Web 1.0. And even from the days that we start to say, hey, BYOD, right, you can bring your own device to office. It's about, how do we embrace a new movement, right? And it's about the timing as well. So if we say, hey, we go decentralized right now, I think it's quite impossible. It will take, steps towards that. But it's about how do we embrace the underlying philosophy and technology to create a better system and more efficient system that works for everyone. And today is a bit different from Web 1.0 and Web 2.0, where we are dealing with digital natives, right? The adoptions, the mindset is very different from our time. And, there is also an interest towards better control, better self-motivations, and so on. So I think the younger generation will be able to adopt this decentralized approach much better. Then it's about, how do we then engage them? Maybe just a small example about my own experience. I spent 8 years helping to build the Singapore startup ecosystem. First with SG Innovate, running the acceleration programs and ecosystem development. Then heads up ACE as CEO of Action Community for Entrepreneurship. Now, one thing that we wanted to do is really to do a lot of ground-up initiatives, right? We do a lot of on-the-ground engagement, roundtables, trying to talk to the staff, what do they need, and so on. And then we try to surface up all this feedback, right, to the decision maker, to the government, and stuff like that. The whole process is very, very inefficient, and not all the ideas and viewpoints will be adopted. At the end, it's still very much centrally driven, top-down. And obviously, of course, Singapore is doing a great job in setting the trends and building the startup ecosystem, but I think it could be better. So, for example, Original Startup Collective comes from a ground-up movement. It allows all the different members of the startup community to have a voice and to vote on the decision, right? And to act on it very quickly. And the decision is being, noted on the blockchain. So it kind of like iron out some of the frictions that we have, right? in a way that we try to drive the startup community. But again, I'm not saying that, hey, then let's go everything decentralized. What we can do is that then, from a country perspective, how do we then tap on all these ground up initiatives and engage a decentralized community in better decision making, right? So that everybody's voice can be heard and a decision can be made more efficiently and effectively.
Wei Jie, you have any?
Yeah, so I guess the fundamental question really lies on the fact on the areas of trust, governance, and control. And fundamentally, when a lot of people first started, of course, with a centralized base model, it's because they really couldn't trust everyone to make the right decision or one particular party to actually govern so-called the specific decision making. And I guess that's when a centralized base model, they trusted upon a specific leader, a community, or group to be able to make the right decision. But then again, over time, some forms of trust has eroded. And that's the reason why a lot of people have moved towards a decentralized model, where say now we want to give the power back to the entire community and the people to make a decision. But the fundamental problem of where we are today as well, when we move towards a decentralized space, is then would everyone be so-called well-informed or equally informed to make the right decision at a point of time? And that has fundamentally led us to certain risks that we have faced over the last number of months or even the last number of years of what's actually going on, whether it's in the DeFi or the decentralized space as well. But if we take this and super jump it on the extreme towards many, many years later, and this might not be in our lifetime, but one day, or even today, space travel is actually already available to a certain extent. And we super jump that very much to 100 years, 200 years down the road. In the instance that there may be potentially people living, whether it's on Mars and space of the likes, how then would they do decision making? How then effectively would they be able to make and come from upon a consensus that would actually affect the community itself? So that's many years down the road, which might not affect us. But if we bring it back down towards what might affect us in the next 5 to 10 years, what might be actually more grounded would be how would then decision be made in the metaverse when you start deciding on property, on rights, on trust, or decision making that might affect a virtual community that you might not even have your real identity. You might just have a digital persona and a group of people that's actually making decision on something that might affect whether it's your pocket or your experience within the space itself. So I believe that this will definitely come in some forms or manner, but a lot of it is very much dependent on different industries, different phases, and different use cases, where certain things might be more centralized, certain things might be more decentralized, and many a time it'll always be a hybrid of both. Very much agreeing with what Prof said as well.
How about yourself, Xinghua?
I think Hui Jin made a very good point, and from like a builder perspective, because for venture capitalists, we back those builders and founders. I think our approach is very much like a progressive decentralization. Because to be very honest, decentralization can be very expensive, because in order to make every node to reach a consensus, and I think it's a very expensive process. And sometimes for like a Web3 like founders, if you build a product from scratch and you are lack of resources, it's hard to really make, I think, a useful or a good user experience system if you if from the very beginning you are using fully decentralized approach. So I think so our advice to a lot of founders is that you can build the system using very much like a centralized like a databases technology protocol at the very beginning, but you need to have like an open-minded approach as you grow, as your technology become more mature, and you need to delegate control, the governance to the community instead of, I think that the few founders, the management team make all the decisions. So you need to delegate more power, I think, to the community, to the user, to the token holder, and also gradually you need to migrate your system, to maybe a hybrid model, maybe in the long term to be a more maybe decentralized system. So I think that's what like a Uniswap or some of the, I think, a very successful system is doing now. I think maybe for a lot of founders, I think you can take a progressive decentralization approach when you build the product, Web3 product. Yeah.
Actually, I would like to add on Xinhua's points that the creator or the inventor of this Web3 3.0 system actually plays a very important role. I want to use in a interaction I've had with Vitalik last year. Actually, last year, when someone gave him 900 million worth of Doge coins, I was observed how Vitalik is going to react to that movement. Will he actually monetize that 900 million worth of coins? Doge coin, you know, it's like thing, yeah, right? Actually, what he did actually was not surprised to me. That also explains why so far Ethereum is one of the most popular layer 1 chain. Actually, he actually take the coins, capitalize it, and donate to the COVID-19 relief cause in India. That shows he's a truly believer and also the doer of this decentralized principle. He will not. He's willing to let go of the control of the system. Because by giving away this asset or this money, it shows he's not interested in control of the system or even control the words generated by the system. That's actually a rare attribute. Someone who's in this Web 3.0 movement, who, if you believe this, you have to practice it. So that's actually I want to echo on that point.
So this Web3 for good, right?
Yeah.
Doing good, giving back, like an impact fund.
Is let go of control. Yeah. Even you invent this thing, it's not yours. It's the community. It's everyone else. It's not. That's why the top two trends, Bitcoin and Ethereum. Bitcoin and no one knows who's Nakamoto, right? And Ethereum have these few founders who are a truly believer of this decentralized approach and principle.
And what do you think are some of the new business or tech avenues that will revolutionize our industry in this Web3 era?
Xinhua can.
I think there's a lot of technologies going on, right? Like, for example, recently people talk a lot about like a Ethereum, Ether 2.0, talk a lot about like a layer 2 scaling solutions, talk a lot about like zero knowledge proof. I think those all become very important building blocks for next generation of blockchain technologies. And also even for DeFi, people talk about, particularly with the USD Luna crisis recently. So people talk about, like containability, talk about security, talk about like compliance, about like a DeFi, so that if you cannot resolve those issues, you can now bring traditional like Web2 financial institutions, more entities to the new financial system, right? So I think there's a lot of discussion about that as well. And also definitely about the Metaverse, right? And people also talk about like a DAO, right? People struggling with a lot of like, DAO, whether it's more efficient, whether it will promise a better future. I think there's a lot of practice, a lot of tooling surrounding like a DAO as well. So I think those are all important. The progress we need to pay attention to, and even for the e-commerce, right? There's a lot of discussion about like NFT gated access, like how brands can leverage like NFTs, not just your profile, right? Now it's just those sport apes, those type of things. But how you can leverage like NFTs as a way to redefine your loyalty program, to re-engage your customers, and to leverage some of the DID, decentralized IDs, to take personalization to the next level. And even using some of like a blockchain technologies or Web3 to really track the ESG, the supply chain, in order to, because there's a lot of fraud. There's a lot of like a greenwashing, right? Some of the brands claim they have green, but actually do not. But how you can really prove they are doing leveraging the supply chain in a responsible, environmental responsible supply chain. So you can leverage some of the blockchain technologies to do the track and proof. So some of the progresses, I think, that happen either on the blockchain technology, some of the underlying layer, and also happen in the how you can merge the Web3 with traditional financial system with traditional world. Yeah.
Yes, Prof.
So me again. Okay, so in terms, maybe not since they are from industry, probably can better answer the question about the new business opportunity.
Well, okay. I think the way that we look at business opportunities in Web 3.0 or the Metaverse would be quite different. I think it really takes something to rethink about how do we really engage the users, the consumers, entire supply chain. Now, for example, let's go back to Web 1.0. It was not about putting up your PDF on the web and you hope that your commerce will happen. Right? It's the same for today. If you go into the metaverse and you just duplicate your web experience in it, it's going to be very different. So it's how about, think about how do we engage people in a 3D environment or even an AR environment. Just now Prof mentioned about, for example, Singapore. Now, even at a country perspective, Singapore is no longer limited by the 42 kilometers square, right? Or length in terms of the length. In the internet one, we say any company, when you got on the internet, you can be an MNC. Now, at a country level, do we need to be limited by our geographical location? Can we have omnipresent, built as big as Singapore as we want, or have Singapore in every country that you go to and experience Singapore in every different type of instances? Same for the businesses. Do you just need to have one identity? Or do you have different type of identities in different multiverses, right? And even for individual, right? I can be a lawyer in the day, but I like to talk about cooking at night, or I'm a president, but I like to be a comedian. So, there are many ways that you can engage people in the metaverse, and all online is governed by the trust system in the blockchain. So I think really in terms of engaging people, just for example, one case, right, in terms of a distributed kind of decision making. Today, companies are going into the social media, doing social listening, doing surveys to understand their consumer wants, tapping on the consumer data to do 360 customer analysis so that they can better engage their customer and push out the goods and services and trying to influence their users. But in the Web 3.0, in the decentralized, you can directly engage with your customers, right? And the customer can be part of your decision-making process so that you can produce what they really want, right? In a more effective and efficient manner. And at the same time, reduces waste along the way.
All right, Hui Jie?
Yeah, so I guess Web3 really is a mirage of many different technologies coming together, whether it's old and new. And whether is it from the NFTs to VR and AR, as well as blockchain and cryptocurrency, I think a lot of them revolves around a few key trends that I think would impact the space. So one of them, I believe very strongly, is the areas of hyper-personalization, where moving forward, the experience that people are looking at is very much highly personalized to themselves, what they're interested, what they're looking at, driving a lot in the areas of AI, driving for that specific area in the areas of hyper-personalization. The other areas which I think is going to be really impacting the space in the areas of new experiences. So the way people are experiencing or expecting to experience a new purchasing behavior, a new service level, whether it's in Metaverse or VR or AR based model, it's going to highly change. And imagine that now if everybody is creating that much amount of data, the amount of taxation on the infrastructure and the amount of expectation on the amount, so-called, of experience, you're not going to sit there and wait for 1 second or 2 seconds before the thing load. It's going to need a very radical jump in terms of how we are just doing things now. So the infrastructure-based model needs to catch up in order for us to be able to better enhance upon that particular experience itself. And the third area, which I think will be highly important, is areas of ownership, where people now are looking very much to own their own data, to own the different things that they actually create as well. I think these are the three things that revolving technologies will eventually all revolve around in areas of personalization, ownership, as well as new experiences.
Okay, actually, I don't have too much to say about this business, but I always thought about now how does this new technology comes about become our from the subculture into our main culture. So actually, to me, all of this Web 1.0, Web 2.0, Web 3.0, it started as a subculture in our society. And look at the number of people who have access or who have experience in the early stage of this Web 1.0, 1.0, and then we can learn from those practices. Actually, you just mentioned 1995, you already started the company. Now, 1995, I first time have get online. I still remember 1995. The first web page I see was a university website. I remember it's Stanford or MIT. Some of my senior brought me to a lab to actually first time have this Mosaic browser. Mosaic browser, I still remember. And then because of that, I choose my English name as Mosaic. And then later when I went to US, says don't use browser, don't use Mosaic. It's not a good word. Yeah. So it's a thing about how do we evolve this from a subculture in our society into main culture, and that's where you see the business traverse, business opportunity pops up. There's probably some tipping point now, and your subculture become a main culture, and real business model will emerge. Like Web 1.0, actually, there's not so much business model or business opportunity per se. It's just more a lot of geeks like work together through these interconnectivities, and then until 2.0, people start to realize that the new business model and start to moving from the subculture into at least one of the main culture in our society. That's actually what 3.0. I don't know how long will take become a main culture. And I just want to do a sample here. How many of sitting here actually own any cryptocurrency here? Okay, probably less than 10%, right? And we still not yet there. So until like we probably 30% of people actually is part of the culture or subculture, then probably we can think about what are the business model and what are the business community we can capitalize.
So, and comes with all the business benefits, there's also related risks involved. Share with us this is the last question on, what do you think are some of the risks that we should take note of? How can we overcome this risk, right? A lot of you talk about community, the users. Can we involve them, right? Please feel free to share. Maybe we'll start with Singhua, please.
Yeah, there is a lot of security risk. To be very honest, the for Web3. Well, because there's a lot of money going on, and for hackers, they usually try to maximize their ROI, return on investment. So that's why they always choose attack surfaces or areas where they can maximize their return. So that's why I think, particularly for DeFi protocols, so you attract a lot of hackers try to attack, and also for some of the countries like North Korea, they have Lazarus group, so it's a really organized, like how to say, there's an organized force who really target those high value systems in the Web3. because Web3 is a lot of system. There's no compliance, no governance, enough governance, no enough adequate like audit of all the contracts about the governance loopholes, Oracle loopholes. So they tend to attack those systems. And even like the popular like Axie Infinity, it's hard to imagine they haven't done any security audit before they launch the system. Even they become a very popular, like millions of users are using the system. They haven't done any adequate like a security check. So that's why I think there's a lot of loopholes, a lot of vulnerabilities for the Web3 like a system. So that's why I think from long-term point of view, we need to better security practices. We need to better tooling as well. Because right now, only some of the security analysts, they are doing the manual audit. This is hard to scale. So far, I think less than 15% of smart contract running on blockchain, have done like a security audit. Even, it's hard to say whether it's an adequate audit or not. So the majority of the protocols of smart contract run the blockchain have go unaudited, and they don't have any, I think, adequate security measures or practice in place. So that's number one, is a very big risk. Secondly, I think as DeFi transfer the money, from different countries, different nation states, and we need to pay a lot of attention to those the KYC, the anti-money laundering practice. We need to have more compliance in place. I think that's I heard like one of the Alibaba Cloud professional mentioned that you have solution in place. So going forward, I think that the whole the Web3 the founder, they need to work with some of the governments. They need to work with some of the infrastructure provider, maybe like Alibaba Cloud, maybe like company like a Chain Analysis, Merkle Science, Elliptic, try to have build a better compliant system in place. And also for the consumers, or maybe for the Web3 users, they need to become more vigilant, and they need to know, what's some of the proper way of using the wallets to transfer the money, to protect their privacy. So I think there's a lot of work need to be done, but I think that the whole Web3 will become more secure and better, I think, in the future. Yeah.
So it means there's a misconception of the high risk, high return by all the crypto traders, and probably they don't want this whole process to be implemented. All right.
Okay, so actually, I like the way you just said high risk and high return. Actually, it's a fundamental principle in finance. But in this Web 3.0, actually, high risks, the risk portfolio to different person, they actually have different annotation. For those who are in the subculture, the risk, and compared to those who are outside of this subculture, the risks are total different. I cannot imagine my mom and dad will play DeFi. For them, this risk could be huge. But for other people who are actually in the ecosystem, who understand what's going on, and that's actually different risk exposure. So therefore, the risk in this new emerging field, we have to know that what are the systematic risks, what are the risk because of you don't have access to the knowledge, or you don't know these technology, you don't know the ecosystem. That's actually risk, a different set of risk. So if you look at the fundamental or systematic risk, that's actually in general true, high risk and high return. But if you add in those risks resulting from lack of knowledge, lack of understanding, that's actually it's not true. Therefore, I always advise my parents or my friends who ask me about how to get involved with this Web3. I said you you have to learn a lot of new stuff in order to know actually what you are exposed, what are you get yourself into before you actually making any seriously investment into this new opportunity. And so that's the point I want to make out. The risk, actually high return, high risk is actually all applies to this systematic or fundamental risk, and excluding these risk result from the lack of knowledge and lack of understanding of the underlying technology and underlying system and underlying culture.
Goodness.
Yeah, I really agree. Web 3.0 is still very new. Crypto, of course, is still very new. Even yesterday, I think the minister is asking people, not to delve too much into it, especially if you don't understand it. Yeah. So I think there are a few kind of risks. Maybe one is, relating to a digital divide risk, right? Today, there are still people, not dealing too much with the social media. They are still at Web 1.0. So as we move on to Web 3.0, we're going to see the spectrum becoming wider and wider. There will be people who are more forerunner. There are people who might be left behind. So in terms of society, there could be a social digital divide that's happening, right? But again, there are always, technologies or new philosophies and new movement being championed by people who are willing to explore at the edge so that we can move forward, right? So these are the people who are more willing to take risks. The greatest risk is to be involved in something that you don't understand in, that you do not take responsibility to learn about it, and you just follow the trend, right? Yeah. So then these are the people who got burnt. So coming back to the wallet issues, for example, now if we go for empowerment of the users, now you're taking responsibility, right, of your own data, of your own transactions, and you go and key in the wrong wallet address, and that's it, right? There's no way that you can recover your funds. Yeah, but today if you deal with a bank, you still can, work out something with a bank. So are you willing to take up that responsibility yourself, or do you have the time to do so? So not everybody is a power user, right? So if you jump in and go into something that you don't really understand, then there's a fundamental risk to that.
Vijay?
So sometimes high risk, high return, sometimes high risk, no return. Very much with some people who might have gotten involved with Luna over the last number of weeks. So I guess
Negative return.
negative returns. So many a time, I guess, risk comes from different aspects, whether it's from a market risk perspective or organizational risk or from individual risks. And if you look from different perspectives of organizational risks, it goes both ways. One is that they maybe got involved, but they didn't basically take care, and eventually there's specific risk in losing certain funds of the likes. But on the opposite hand, if they do not so-called go into this particular market and they eventually become late adopters, then there's also risk that they are not able to conform towards the latest of what's happening. And coming back to an individual risk perspective, many a time, as what many of the different panel have mentioned, it's very much in areas of knowledge, whether you have misplaced your private key or you started sharing with a couple of friends or so on and so forth, that essentially is a risk as well. But on the opposite hand, the other thing which might be of interest of note, I have a couple of friends who have kids that accidentally or knowingly placed a couple of dollars into a couple of cryptocurrency and became much richer than their parents itself. And fast money can sometimes corrupt very young kids very, very quickly as well. So that is a risk as well. When you make so much money and millions of dollars in a short period of time, do they actually appreciate the value of money, and would they actually lose it really, really fast as well? So from this particular perspective of risk, I think it comes from many different aspects. It's definitely a new world that's upcoming, and that's something that we need to consider, whether it's from a personal level, organizational level, market level, even from our future generation level.
Right. I mean, we've covered quite a number of key topics today, from the benefits, right, in terms of business, to the economy, to the country, and then you talk about decentralization and centralization, what is real, right, and what's not. You talk about the risks as well, security, and the community that's involved. Now, just one liner from each of you to wrap up, right? What is one key well, you can call it advice or an inspirational quote, whichever that you prefer, for the businesses who wants to explore entering the Web3 space? Okay, Singhua.
Well, well, you cannot learn swimming, without getting your body wet, right? So I think there's a lot of risk, right? There's a lot of uncertainties, but the potential rewards and possibilities are unlimited. So I think I still encourage like founders to explore and to explore the new possibilities of Web3. Yeah,
Thank you. So go for it.
go for it. Yeah.
Yeah, while we go for it, I would also caution that we need to pay attention to the potential societal impact of these new ideas and new technology imposed on common people like you and me, and that's actually we see that happened a lot over the last all the technology involvement.
I would say stay hopeful and continuous learning.
Hopeful in yourself?
Yeah, I guess in this space, many a time the fastest way to learn, it's always to mix with people who are actually in it, because every day we are learning something new. But also more importantly, it's that to focus on things that will impact your business or yourself, because there's just so many things that can be done. So focus and mix with basically the community.
All right, thank you so much. Give them a round of applause. Thank you, panelists, for your sharing. Let's take a quick picture. All right, let's look at the camera and take a quick picture before we end the session today.